This has actually never happened to me before. All right, so we're gonna make some homemade pasta today. It's actually really easy. You only need a few ingredients. I have some double O flour, which is usually for pizza, but it's good because it's very fine. So it gives that your pasta like a silky texture. It's very finely ground as opposed to all-purpose, which you can use as well, or you can use semolina. It's fine. We have some olive oil, some salt, 2 eggs. So what I need is I need 240 grams of flour. And if you're wondering why can you use like 2 cups, it's because volume measurements can be inaccurate. So if you have 2 cups of flour, depending on the flour, it might be less flour than others. So if you just say 2 cups, you might actually be different. But if you weigh it, then it's the same, literally the same mass. And bakers use this quite a lot. There's something called baker's ratios, which is like percentages, you know. So they'll say you need to hydrate your flour 60% or something. That's 60% water weight-wise compared to the flour. So I have 240 grams right here, which is perfect. Is what I need. Assuming your counter is clean, or you can use a cutting board if you want. I'm going to go ahead and just make a little volcano. Half a tablespoon of salt. Same thing with salt, like if you're measuring salt, if you say 2 tablespoons of salt, well, if you use fine salt, it's not the same as if you use coarse salt, volume-wise. Half a tablespoon of olive oil, which is almost nothing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a well. And then we're going to put 2 eggs here. I use 2 large eggs. I made this with more eggs, and it makes the flour really whoa. Okay, so this can happen, right? If your well breaks, don't worry about it. Of course, this has actually never happened to me before, believe it or not. And of course, the time I decided to make a video for it. So one way to not get your hands dirty and all of that is to use a bench scraper. And so you're gonna grab your eggs and you're gonna start mashing them and mixing. And once your dough is mostly incorporated and you have this weird looking thing right here, then you can start kneading, right? You start kneading by pressing and gathering and pressing and gathering, and it's a little bit messy at first. You can see how some of the flour still hasn't been hydrated, but when you start kneading, it's going to help it do that. And you will also develop that gluten and that protein that needs to be developed to create the dough shape and consistency. And the first time I did this, I felt like the dough was a little dry, so I added another egg. And in fact, the next couple of times I made pasta, I made it with 3 eggs instead of 2, and that turned out to be a bit of a mistake because the pasta ended up being way too wet and way too sticky, and it wasn't fun to work with. So I ended up adding more flour every time. So I decided to stick to the recipe instead, and it does feel a little bit dry at first, but as you knead, you're starting to see how it's starting to take shape. Making a pasta dough is notoriously hard on your back. It's hard work. Whew. All right, so I have been kneading for about 10 minutes, maybe 11. And I did not need to add water to my dough per se, although it felt a little dry. So what I did was I just wet my hands a little bit. Just wet my hands, and then kept working it. And that really did something great to it. Look, so This is what you want to see, a smooth surface, and this thing dries out very quickly, so I'm gonna make it into a ball like so, and we're gonna let it rest. Okay, we need to let it rest so you can relax a little bit. You could go on to the next step with your dough like this, but it would be very hard to work with. Trust me, like my hands hurt just from doing this. Could you do this on a machine? Sure, but the pasta doughs are notoriously hard on mixers and things because, I mean, look at it. It's pretty solid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a ball with the foil, and we use, not foil, I mean the plastic wrap. We use plastic wrap so it doesn't dry out. But we're going to let it sit for about 25-30 minutes, and then we're going to go on to the next step. All right, so it's been about an hour or so, and we've given the dough some time to develop. You can actually see some bubbles in it, but you see how this is what it's supposed to be like. Now I'm gonna get some, this is some all-purpose that I have, and I'm gonna put some here because this is where I'm gonna put my pasta once it's cut. And I'm gonna get some flour here, not too much. What I want to do, so this is close to 300 grams of dough, and that's about maybe 2 servings or 3 servings depending on your appetite. I'm going to try to cut it into 3 equal parts, so maybe there and maybe there, actually maybe a little there. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. And I would say this is probably the biggest one. And you see how there's some bubbles in it developing, like bread. Ha, that's crazy. I'm gonna take this one piece right here, and I'm gonna flatten it a little bit just with my hands. I'm just gonna flatten it a little bit, right? And once I have it flattened like that, I have my little pasta presser here, and we're going to start on the biggest or the widest, which is 8, and keep it a low speed. You don't want to go too fast. And then I'm going to feed it through. And there it comes. Look at that, it's beautiful. And then I'm gonna fold it like so, just so I can have a bit of a better, more even shape. And I'm gonna put it through again. And do it again. And again. Okay, so one thing I forgot to do that I need to do is I need to put these in this again, or else it's going to dry out really bad. So we're going to try to keep them, there you go, as airtight as possible, and we're going to work with that later. All right. So after you've ran it through a couple of times on the highest setting, I'm going to go down to the next one, down to 7. Same speed. And I'm going to run it through again. And I'm going to go down to the next speed, which is 6. And I'm going to do it, I'm going to run it twice again. Down to 5. 4. All right, so I'm gonna leave it at 4 because I wanna make some spaghetti, but I don't want it to be too thin. So the other day I made some spaghetti and I went all the way down to 2, which is where I normally go for linguine. But it was angel hair, and I did not intend to do angel hair. So I'm gonna use my spaghetti cutting adapter. And just install it right here on the machine. You gotta make sure that you have some kind of flour on it because you don't want it to stick to the machine. You don't have to overdo it, right? But you just want to make sure that it's covered and make sure that it's nice and covered in flour. And same, keep it at the lowest speed. You don't want to go fast on this. You gotta be patient and no go fast, and then just feed it through. And there comes our beautiful spaghetti. Look at that. By the way, I'm not pulling or pushing or anything like that. I'm just letting the machine do the work. Ah, how satisfying. And look, this is perfect spaghetti. Perfect spaghetti right here. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. So one thing I like to do is I like to just pass it through some more flour because I really don't want the piece to stick together. You know, and it doesn't matter at this point. You can add flour because when you cook it, the flour is just going to stay in the water. So, and there you go. Now here's the thing. I'm going to cook this, and if you want to see what I make with it, hint, pasta carbonara, you got to check out the next video. But you can take your pasta once you have a bunch of these and just nest it up, right? And I'm not good at doing that yet, but you can put this in the freezer, let it firm up, then put it in a Ziploc bag and keep it in the freezer for up to, I think, 2 months or so. And you know, you can make it in portions per person or per 2 people, or, you know, so you know how much to cook when it's time to cook. And I'm going to show you how I cook my pasta in the next video.